My name is Tatu Leppämäki. I'm a PhD researcher at the University of Helsinki at the Digital Geography Lab. And I'm helping out on this QGIS 2025 course by running these QGIS tutorials. So as you may know, on this course, you have the freedom to choose whichever tools you are most familiar with and most comfortable with. So we have tutorials for QGIS and Python approaches, but if you prefer, you can always use R, ArcGIS, whichever you're most comfortable with. These tutorials for QGIS and Python will mostly touch upon the same themes. They will mostly use the same datasets, but on occasion they will diverge since one approach is maybe more doable with one tool or the other. In this first tutorial, we'll be working on colors, layouting, and usage of map elements. And we'll get familiar with data acquisition for QGIS using OpenStreetMap data and practice color choice and layouting. And in terms of techniques, tips that you might pick up from here is that you'll be introduced to data-driven styling in QGIS. First, how you will access these tutorials. So you will either find them on the web pages where you can just scroll them, follow them along. You don't need to run any code mostly on this. So you can just sort of scroll along this web page version. Or if you prefer, you also find these same materials in the course's GitHub repository. And for each week, there will be a folder called QGIS files that will have a few auxiliary files that you will use during these tutorials. For example, every week we'll have a set of a processing model that will run through the same steps that we'll soon walk through. So if you need to repeat tutorial steps, so then you can use the processing model. And there will be style files to replicate the visuals that you will see in these examples. And you can acquire these QGIS files. There will be a download link on the web page. And there should be also download links within these tutorial notebooks. So if you're not familiar with these are Jupyter notebooks with markdown styling that we'll use to sort of present this information, but we'll not be running any code on these notebooks in these QGIS versions. And if you're wondering where I'm working on, it's a Jupyter lab. So yeah. Before we get into the actual tutorial, let's discuss how you can run these QGIS tutorials over this course. So of course, you will need a relatively recent version of QGIS. It's a safe bet to choose the latest long-term release, which at the time of writing is 3.40 Bratislava. And these tutorials are run on a Windows computer, but I'm not aware of any issues with Mac or Linuxes. So if you find some issues, then do notify me. Then I will actually follow. So how we can follow these tutorials. So there will of course be these text toolbox parts, text blocks here that will give you some guidance and background information of what's happening, what you're going to do. And then there will be instruction blocks that are colored blue like this. And these will actually prompt you to do something. So for example, here the instruction is that open QGIS, which you can do right now. I have it open right here for me. As this is an advanced course, the instructions will expect that you are familiar with basic functionalities of QGIS and GIS software. So layers and attribute tables, processing tools, styling methods. So it is not a basic GIS course. And as such, we will try to keep these point-by-point instructions to a minimum. having said that, the aim is still that you can run these tutorials either by following along this video tutorial or then on your own, just using the text here. So they should be self-explanatory to an extent. On occasion, there will be these orange blocks, which I call note blocks, just some sort of relevant, important information that I want to draw your attention to. Then, as I said, there won't be much code to run, but there will still be excerpts of code or blocks of text that will be given in these code quotes or code blocks, as you can see here. And these prompt you to copy this piece of text and then paste it to wherever the instructions will guide you to. Then, as I mentioned, these instructions will use QGIS, but there are some use cases where it's not the best tool for, and these tutorials might have something to blocks of Python code, or there will be other notebook files where you can test out some method that were introduced during this week. For example, this week there is a nice tool for trying out different projections. And if you want to run them, you can always check the course environment page on the web pages and launch this Binder workplace or a CSC notebook environment where you can run these Python codes. Just to keep in mind. Then finally, as mentioned, there will be example illustrations or visualizations throughout the instructions. And of course, the point of this course is for you to experiment, to create maps, try out different styles and means of map making. But if you want to recreate the examples in these references, so you can do so with these .qml files. And later on, I'll show you how to use them. And you will find these files always in this QGIS files folder, which you can download and have somewhere locally within your grasp. So, for example, I have downloaded the files for myself here. Now, let's get into the actual tutorial. So you will need to have QGIS open. And as a prerequisite, we'll need to install a plugin. So this week we'll be working with OSM data, so OpenStreetMap data. And we'll be making a street map of a region in Helsinki and explore a bit how we can make a relatively interesting thematic map over that area. But to get there, we'll first need to have the data. And the simplest way to get OpenStreetMap data to QGIS for small areas is to use this plugin. So there are instructions here on installing it. So in QGIS, as normal, go to the plugins repository and then just search quick OSM and then install it. I have it already installed, so I won't be doing that again. So now that you have installed Quick OSM, you will find it here either on the toolbar or then under the vector drop-down menu, and just launch the tool. And OSM data can be queried with this idea of keys and values. So we're interested in the street network, and there's a specific key that identifies all streets in OSM, which is highway. And you will find these instructions, remember, always on the instruction page, and then there are these code blocks that you can copy and paste to OSM. So highway, and then we'll need to define, and we could limit this highway to a specific type of highway like cycleway, but we'll actually want to get everything that we can that falls under a highway. And then we'll limit ourselves to a specific area of interest, which is Kamppi in Helsinki, Finland, a suburb near the city center. And then under this advanced toolbar, we want to limit ourselves to just line geometries. So not bother with points and multi-polygons. And with that, you can just run the query. And there you have it. So now we can close quick OSM. And you'll have a line network much like this one here. Make it a bit nicer, yeah. So, of course, the first thing you noticed probably is that this layer looks a bit wonky, and that's, of course, because of this coordinate reference system that's currently in use. So a global one, EPSG 4326. So instead, let's choose one that's more suitable for Helsinki or Finland in general, and that will be 3067. So this is a coordinate system that's more or less good all around Finland. So apply that, and this will do the on-the-fly reprojection to this coordinate reference system, but then the underlying data is still using still using the EPSG 4326. So just for future use, if we want to calculate anything that requires a projected coordinate system. So like if we want to get the length of these lines, which we could do later on, so we could reproject this layer. So just use the processing toolbox, which we always find here. So reproject the layer to 3067. Good. And you can work with this reprojected layer. And it's always a good practice to take a look at the attribute table of whatever you have. So here the OSM, quick OSM and OSM data in general works so that these keys and values will be casted to separate columns. And even if one feature, one of these values, so button operated, proposed tram, so then that will be visible here as a separate column. But it's actually quite hard to find the useful layers here for us, or useful columns rather. So we'll use this tool called retain fields. So we'll want to retain certain fields and cast out others. So we keep 4 fields that are more useful for us. So highway, surface. So what is it? A paved one or something different? Name. Let's use the generic name column. Then max speed. If you're interested in some other columns for the information, like is it the lit layers or lit patch report, so you can always choose that as well. Running this one, and now with the retain fields, we should have this. Yeah, good. And with that, we're done with this house cleaning type of thing. So we can move on to working on our map. So how will we style this crude street network layer into something that's more workable and pleasant to the eye? So we could just use the standard graduated or categorized tiling options. But actually, we'll look into data-driven overrides. And what that means is that for these layers, so we can open the properties and then symbology. So of course, each layer has different set of these variables like opacity, how transparent the layer is, width, color, so forth. And actually, each of these features can be sort of dynamically defined based on an expression and based on the data that you have. And this is a rather powerful tool, and it's good to have it in your arsenal. And you can always find these data-driven, data-defined overrides with this symbol besides these different variables like opacity. First, let's define the width of our tool. So now it's a flat 0.26 millimeters. So what we'll actually want is that certain features are more prominent than others. That certain features, if they have a certain value in the attribute table, then they are drawn as wider. So basic visual hierarchy that we are communicating. So here in the instructions, you will find this expression that if you read it out aloud, it's a conditional expression. And conditional expressions always have this case, in QGIS always have this case when. And then there's the condition that needs to be met. Then something else. So then the output value is this. Or when it's this one, the condition, then it's 0.5. And if neither of these conditions match, so then we'll have this 0.15 value. And what this means is that if the layer, if the column highway has this footway, residential or tertiary, so this from the perspective of maybe car driving, more auxiliary roads, so then we'll draw it a bit smaller. With the primary or secondary road, then we'll have a very wide line style for it. And otherwise, if it matches neither of these, so then it's just a small, very small road. So just go ahead and copy paste that expression here. And I can see that this width is overridden. And with that, these certain lines are now drawn wider. So you can have any sort of condition that you want in there. They can be using numerical values, or they can be using these categories. So now we said that it needs to be one of these textual values to match the condition. So yeah, go ahead and try out different things if you want. Okay, so we have done a bit of styling for a layer on the line width. Let's still work on the color scheme. And for this too, we'll have set up a rule-based system. For this example, we'll color the street name based on, we have to color the streets based on their names. So streets that end with katu in Finnish meaning street, or ones that end with kuja or alley. And then we'll have a generic catch-all class for the rest. And these categories have no clear hierarchy, as these previous ones have some type of hierarchy. So these are the primary ones, and these are the secondary and tertiary ones. So instead of using this visual hierarchy that implicates that some of these roads are more important than others, we'll just have a categorical qualitative color scheme for these streets. So let's get to it. We'll use rule-based styling, which you can find in symbology here. So now we're sort of working on top of this previous rule on line width. And we'll copy this twice. We'll have 3 different lines. Copy the features of one to these two others. Yeah. Good. Then we need to unfortunately edit these features individually, which is a bit clumsy. So we can first name it streets. So this is the one that will match the rule katu. And the filter that we're going to use here is this one. So it says that in the column name, take the 4 characters from right. And then we say that if those 4 characters match with katu, so then it's true. So then the rule will match. Good. So now we have isolated those streets. Then we can set a color. So you can choose whichever one that you prefer. I have an example color there, in which you can copy paste this hex code here, which is used to sort of uniquely identify colors in this system. So you'll find this HTML notation here. So just replace the one that is there with this example code or some other color that you prefer. And then, okay. So now if we press apply, yes. And then let's repeat this for the last 2 classes. So first alleys. And a similar filtering rule, just one that captures the names that end with huja. And then another color, which is in this case is this orange. And again, these color choices are just sort of random, or you can choose ones that you prefer. And then we'll have this else, so catch all for other features. So if they're not either of those, so then we colored with this one, which, yeah, it's turquoise color. And with that, yeah, we have our layer. So all in all, it should look something like this. Your rule-based system, and for each of these rules, you will also have the earlier width rule in place. Next, let's move on to layouting. This week we'll create a simple map with just the street network, stylized with these street names or endings of them. And I have an example here, an example map, but in this, don't think that you need to replicate this. You can explore and try out something different. First, you can see this green prompt here. So if you remember, this one says that, okay, this map that you hear here, you can see here below, uses this example street network style.qml. So you know, in the future, I'll show you how you can use these QML files that are given alongside these tutorials. So for the layer that you want to style, go to properties. So from here, you should go to style and load style, and then navigate to the QML file wherever you have it locally. So I have the folder here open already. So example street network style, open it, and then I'll load it up. And then, well, this time it's the same as the style was already, but use it in an unstyle layer, so you can use these style files to get where you need to. Then moving on to the layouting. So here I won't be giving a point by point walkthrough of how you should lay out this, but if you need a refresher on how to use the QGIS map composer, I recommend checking out the official training manual that has all these basic tips and tricks on how to lay out and create and output a map. I'll still show you a few things just to get started. So you should create a new print layout. Yep. And then drag the map, and I will be going relatively quickly through this. So yeah, if you want, you could always fine tune the width of the page and everything like that. And you want to do it when you create your maps during this course. But for this one, I think the default A4 paper size on landscape is fine. First thing that catches my mind is that this background color of white is kind of boring. So this is a safe bet if you want to make your maps snappy. You just give them a dark background. So here in item properties, scroll down a bit, you'll find background. And there, let's make it kind of dark blue, not like completely black, but something that approaches black. Just eyeball it. I eyeball it. You need to find the range if you want. Then next, remember to consider different map elements that you want to use. So think of, for example, title, legend, and node arrow, scale bar, all of these basic things that you sometimes, not always, need on a map, but sometimes they're useful for the reader. So for example, let's give our map a proper title. So what you should be short and sweet. It's a street network. Finland. And then it's not visible at all from the background. So let's set it up like to 24 or something font size. And then we'll need to have a white font. So for it to be distinguishable from the background. So yeah, this is now again a really quick one. So but at least it's serviceable. And you'll need a legend for the reader to know which color denotes what. And then you can manually fine-tune this legend. I dropped its retained fields, and yeah, that's pretty much what we need. Let's not have a background, but let's instead format our item fonts so that they are distinguishable. I can make them a tad bit larger so that they are visible. And then we could align it with title, so we have this nice straight lines. And now we're already like setting up this visual hierarchy with these tools like the font size of the title. So that's something that, of course, we want the viewer to look at. Maybe even one of the first things that we want them to look at. So okay, this is what the map is about. So we have it as large. It's very much, it has a high contrast with the background, so it's very visible. And yeah, then you could add this node arrow and a scale bar. I won't be doing it now, but for example, scale bar, I think it's very much needed on this map because the viewer has no idea of how large is this area, what's the scale here. So that's useful information. On the instructions, there are still like things you should pay attention to a bit, like the use of colors. So is this a sensible color scheme in your opinion? for the phenomena that you're representing. So in this case, the phenomena is very simple, just 3 classes that are categorical. Do you think these colors are distinguishable from each other and are distinguishable from the background? So for example, take that into account in the layout and composition. So are the different elements in balance? Is there a place that has an excess of empty space, for example? So consider that when you're making your maps. And then the different map elements. Do you have what you need to inform the reader? Are you giving the reader enough information? So consider all of these things when making your map in this tutorial, but also throughout the course. Finally, as mentioned before, all of these QGIS tutorials will have these processing models that you can use to rerun these steps automatically so that it's reproducible and replicable. And you will find this processing model in the QGIS files folder as mentioned before. And now I'll show you how you can rerun this, or how you can run this from the start. So actually, if we were to remove all of what we have here, oh no, we don't have anything. So if you want to get back to where we left off, so you can select here in processing toolbox this icon and open existing model. Then you should navigate to your QGIS files folder for this first week and open up the model file, practical 1 processing steps. It launches this model designer view. And here each, so that this block is one processing step that they have here. And there are a few extra ones, but don't bother about those. So here it does the same things that we did manually before. So it queries the data and adds it to your project, and then finally it styles the layer. So you can run this model by pressing this run button here. And then it asks you for a few variables. And if you want to use some other area than Campi, you can type it here. So we can keep the default, so Campi. And then you should navigate to your QGIS files folder again and select the style file, like so. And then you could have an output layer, but we can just keep it temporary layer. And with that, it should run smoothly throughout the whole process. And yes, now we're back at this step. So this will be the same for all of the weeks, more or less. So we can get to this point if you get lost somewhere, if you have some technical issues. So this should get you back on track, these models. There is still a stretch goal. So these are sort of extra things that you can want if you're interested, if you want to delve more deeply into this specific topic. So for this week's, the stretch goal is that you want to make a more coherent street map. You can also add building footprints using quick OSM. So if you were to repeat the query from before, instead of using highway, use building as the key, and then otherwise Campi. And now as buildings are polygons, we actually want to retain multi-polygons and not the other geometry types. Then let's run the query. Yeah, and now we have the building footprints of Campi. And with this, you can try to visualize something that's not just the street networks. There are a few questions that you can consider here. You consider here, like, this new layer makes the readability of the map a bit harder, so it's more busy. Consider ways of how you could de-emphasize it. The street network, for example. Or then there's another question that you would like to highlight a particular building that catches your attention. So how would you go about of doing that? So you can consider, for example, selecting that building to another layer and then adding transparency to all of the other buildings. So then that's highlighted. So add sort of visual hierarchy and visual distinction. And with that, I'd close the first week of tutorial for QGIS. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them on the course Discord channel or other means of contacting us teachers. Thank you.